Well, here's a video that's coming out rather spontaneously. For you see, the long and grueling NHL season has come to a conclusion, which means it's time for me to figure out who's hoisting Lord Stanley this summer. Here's a hint. It could be the Nashville Predators. The reigning Western Conference champions from last year took home the President's Trophy this year, but does that translate into playoff success this year? Something tells me it will, because the Central Division was once again stacked with heavy competition, most notably coming from the Winnipeg Jets. This is probably the best season this franchise has ever had. Their last really good season came in 2007 when the team formerly known as the Atlanta Thrashers actually won the division with 97 points and proceeded to get swept by the Rangers. This year they accumulated a franchise-high 114 points, just 3 points behind the Predators, so theoretically this should help them actually win a playoff game for once. Well, maybe. The Minnesota Wild, the Zach Parise show. Yep, I'm calling it right here. The Wild will be just fine without Ryan Suter. I remember how badly they did towards the end of the 2016 season with Parise sidelined from a back injury and again at the beginning of this season following surgery. Zach Parise is the hockey equivalent to Aaron Rodgers. The team is not going anywhere without him, but at least he's here to stay for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, the annual award for crashing the playoff party goes to the Colorado Avalanche. Yeah, you remember those guys? They randomly won the division back in 2014, but this year a ticket to the playoffs waited for them all the way up until the absolute last game of the season, which they very fittingly had to defeat another playoff team that was holding the exact same spot. And they did. The Avs are in and the Blues are out. Yeah, when's the last time you heard that in the same sentence? But let's examine the true surprise of the entire league. The Vegas Golden Knights. The latest expansion team benefited from stricter expansion rules that I guess allowed them to compete well in their first year of existence. Or they benefited from the Penguins being dumb and giving up Marc-Andre Fleury. One of the two. They won the Pacific Division with an impressive 51 wins, but not before getting riddled by a series of devastating injuries at the worst possible time, one of the casualties being Marc-Andre Fleury. Well shit. At least they dethroned the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah, the Ducks had won the Pacific for the last 5 or so years straight, which is really strange since I don't see them to have the best talent, save for maybe Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. As much as I don't like the Ducks, there is one team in this playoff bracket that will always be my most hated team ever, but I'll get to that momentarily. For now, the Los Angeles Kings. If I recall correctly, they missed the playoffs altogether last year, which makes me wonder if they have even year magic like the San Francisco Giants. Jonathan Quick is not the puck-stopping machine he once was, but old veterans like Drew Doughty, Anze Kopitar, and the notorious Alec Martinez have stepped up to push the Kings into the playoff picture. That's a lot of veterans. By comparison, the San Jose Sharks are also stacked to the brim with veteran players, several of whom have had playoff experience dating as far back as 2009. Are you noticing something here? Yet again, all 3 of the California teams made the playoffs, but the Sharks are the only such team that has yet to win a Stanley Cup. They got close 2 years ago, but methinks the road to Lord Stanley is going to be more difficult than ever because the Eastern Conference is also heavily stacked this year, starting with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning. The New Jersey Devils, who are back in business after 6 years. No wonder the fans are still bitter over losing Zach Parise, and they should be. They missed out on a higher wildcard spot by virtue of losing a tiebreaker. The best thing they have going for them is Corey Schneider, and you can bet he'll need to step his game up for the playoffs. The Boston Bruins somehow turned their fortunes around from the misery of the last 2 seasons en route to punching an easy ticket to the second seed in the Atlantic Division, and they actually had the chance to steal the division title in the last game of the season, but they didn't, forcing them instead to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Whoever touted the Maple Leafs management as geniuses for building up a powerhouse of a team over the course of years, they're probably right. Austin Matthews is heating up at the right time. I consider them lucky to have stolen 2 games against the President's Trophy winners last year, but this year they looked ready to make a deep playoff run. You know which team isn't? The Washington Capitals. Is it any coincidence that they didn't come close to winning the President's Trophy this year? Last year was their last best chance to win the Cup before losing their best stars to free agency, and it has painfully revealed itself for all the world to see. I mean, yeah, they were still good enough to win the Metro Division, but of course in hockey, division titles mean shit. Besides, they just might still have to worry about, what do you know, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Of course, the good news is that times have changed and Penguins management really did a lolcow by getting rid of Marc-Andre Fleury. Neither the regular season powerhouse Capitals nor the Stanley Cup powerhouse Penguins looked like the clashing titans I remember watching for the last 2 years. Washington gets to worry about the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are slowly but surely racking up that playoff experience and for once facing a team that isn't the f***ing Penguins. Those guys get the Philadelphia Flyers. I wonder if the Flyers were also rocking at even year magic, regardless of whether it helped them win a cup recently. In any case, oh boy, an interstate rivalry in the first round? Yes, please! Now, bear with me, since I was like 1 or 2 days away from the start of the playoffs when I finished this script, but this is the order in which I plan to run through each of the first round matchups. Ready? Go! I'm putting the first pressure on the last second playoff team, the Colorado Avalanche, as they try to topple the President's Trophy winners, the Nashville Predators. But this is probably the easiest pick of the playoffs. Smashville is full of blossoming talent that showed their prowess as early as last year's playoff run, and they could only get better from there. They have the superior current roster, and they're set to imitate the Blackhawks dynasty of the last few years. The Preds won't give the Avs a chance. They'll dispose of the Rocky Bastards as quickly as they got rid of the Blackhawks. Next up, we have the Minnesota Wild facing the Winnipeg Jets. The Wild had 5 players hit the 50-point mark on the season, and Eric Staal managed to tally 42 goals. The Winnipeg Jets did basically the same thing, with Patrick Laney scoring 44 goals and Blake Wheeler cementing his status as a top 5 point scorer in the league. This is going to be a tight series. The Jets have a massive point advantage, but the Wild have 6 consecutive years of playoff experience, and they have tons of veteran leadership. Both teams are stacked with young players who have showcased their talents well, so on the surface, picking a winner is a tough decision. However, this is the Winnipeg Jets. It's reasonable to say that they'll finally win their first playoff game, but I don't see them doing much after that. Just look at the 2014 Columbus Blue Jackets. I give this series to the Wild in 6 games. The Los Angeles Kings are the first playoff opponent set for the Vegas Golden Knights. You'd expect reality to set in for a team that won the division in their first year of play. And you'd be right. The Golden Knights are set back heavily by a lack of playoff experience whatsoever and a long list of critical injuries that'll end up costing them the series. Don't get me wrong, they'll put up a big fight, but I'm calling the Kings to steal the series. In an overtime Game 7. The San Jose Sharks square off against the Anaheim Ducks. Okay, seriously, the Ducks' reign of the Pacific had gone for way too long, like to the point where it took the latest expansion team to knock them off. You know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The Ducks rely too heavily on their Big Four core, but the speedy Sharks will put them away in 5 games. Over in the Eastern Conference, we have the New Jersey Devils given the unfortunate task of playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning are like the pink peach of the NHL. Devils in 6 games. Here we go with a rematch from 2013 under basically the same circumstances. The Toronto Maple Leafs against the Boston Bruins. I feel like both teams handily earned their playoff spots as they're both pretty hot right now and both have a goal differential of at least 40. I think this has the potential to be another tight matchup. I expect Austin Matthews to be a difference maker, but the Bruins' combination of Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak will prove too much for the poor Leafs fans as they win the hotly contested series in another overtime Game 7. The next matchup features the Columbus Blue Jackets going up against the Washington Capitals, who are so past their prime that the Maple Leafs finished with the same number of points as these guys. The Capitals never exactly dominated in the playoffs at all in recent years, and with the recent crumbling of their roster, I highly doubt that will change. The Blue Jackets will win their first playoff series, defeating the Capitals in 6 games. In order for the Philadelphia Flyers to defeat the Pittsburgh Penguins, they just need to forget about it, okay? Yes, the Penguins have also reeled a little from the expansion draft, but they benefited from a relatively weak Metro division which allowed them to retain their status of being stuck under the Capitals' shadows, still with the capability of beating up on them. But this year, seeing that the Caps won't even make it to the second round, the Pens completely pounce on the Flyers in 5 games en route to meeting up with an old familiar foe. In the second round, we have another first playoff meeting between the Wild and the ever-dominant Predators. The Preds got here by way of the sweep, but all that rest they earned could never slow these guys down. As I mentioned before, Smashville is stacked to the brim with blooming talent, which is probably the one department where the Wild definitively don't compare. I anticipate the Preds will totally steamroll the Wild like they did the Avs. Congratulations, Wild! You can no longer win a game in the second round! Anyway, after that ordeal, we have yet another all-California matchup between the Kings and the Sharks. The Kings may have survived a first-round grudge match against a battered-up expansion team to get here, but they won't get that luxury here. Against the speedy Shark squad, they probably have the capability to steal one game, but after that, they're done for dinner. The Devils have earned a one-way ticket to a matchup against the Bruins, which really should have been the first-round series until the Panthers happened. Actually, I'll let that slide. I like the Panthers. Remember that year when the Islanders knocked off that random Atlantic Division champion Panthers squad only to get beaten back in turn by the Lightning? This year, the Lightning were the random Atlantic Division winner. And this year, the Bruins will take down the Devils in 5 games because that makes sense. This is perhaps the most intriguing matchup of the second round, pitting the Blue Jackets, yeah, remember them, against the defending Stanley Cup champion Penguins. One question I have to ask myself is, do the Penguins still have enough firepower to continue their storied playoff success without Marc-Andre Fleury? Another question, now that the Blue Jackets have finally won a playoff series, they're only poised to go higher, right? Well, as these teams clash all the way to a 7th game, I think about just how important Fleury was to the Penguins last year and how well he played for Vegas this year. In that regard, I just think the Blue Jackets have the Penguins' number this year. And come on, did you really expect the Penguins to three-peat? Here we go with the conference finals. Now knowing that a new Stanley Cup champion will be crowned, we just gotta figure out who's actually going to compete for it. The Sharks and the Jets Predators, met each other in the second round 2 years ago, but in that series, San Jose was the stronger team and ended up winning the Western Conference. The hell happened to them last year? This year is different. They would be wrong to assume that Smashville didn't work to earn their President's Trophy, being part of a tightly contested Central Division. Part of that success still has to be attributed to their star goaltender. I just think Pecorini is too good right now. He has the capability to carry his team back to the finals, even if the Sharks steal a game or two. For you see, this is why they call hockey the game of sweet revenge. Wait a minute. The Eastern Conference has turned into a deadly game of how much farther can the Blue Jackets go now that they're up against the Bruins of all teams. Well, let's see here. The Blue Jackets have an 80-point scorer in the Breadman, but that's about it. The Bruins have 2 80-goal scorers, plus 3 of their guys tallied at least 30 goals on the year. Not to mention they still have Tuukka Rask after all those years. Rask has the power to be a dangerous weapon when handled properly. And what do you know, Claude Julien is not their coach anymore, so I have good faith that Bruce Cassidy knows how to use Rask properly. Knowing that should secure the championship berth for Boston, but not after a hard-fought 7-game duel over the Blue Jackets. Who saw that coming? Anyway, your 2018 Stanley Cup Finals matchup features the Boston Bruins and the President's Trophy winning Nashville Predators in a death battle that's probably going to take a good number of games to complete, starting with the Bruins offense totally embarrassing the Preds in Smashville in Game 1, followed by Pecorine channeling his inner Henrik Lundqvist and stopping 500 shots en route to a bounce-back Game 2 victory. In Boston, the two teams start to show their strong hatred towards each other as one of the team's offenses puts on a clinic and destroys the opposing defense in Game 3, after which a complete reversal of fortune happens and the other team gets the landslide victory to tie the series. With the series shifting on the verge of completion, the two teams then split a pair of overtime games because they suddenly remembered that this was a Stanley Cup Finals, not the NBA Finals. So we already know that the series will be decided in 7 games, and given the relatively high frequency of goals that'll likely result from those landslide games, I think it's fair to say that they'll score a combined total of 28 goals in the Stanley Cup Finals. But which team will hoist the cup when it's all said and done? I don't have NHL 18, so I actually have to think about this one. And you know something? I'm going with the Boston Bruins. With all due respect to Pecorine, I just don't think this youthful franchise will be able to finish the job when the stakes are at their highest. The Bruins have the skill, the talent, and most importantly the experience to bring the Stanley Cup back to Boston in 2018. Let the celebration in New England continue. Oof, that one was a doozy. I actually had to rush to write this script and then hastily get the editing done before the first game started this Wednesday. I give major props to the NFL for providing a good length of time for me to do these things, and I genuinely enjoy doing them. I made another one of those fanboy brackets where I had the Wild beating Vegas en route to defeating the Penguins for their first Stanley Cup because, you know, a Wild fanboy is all I am. So who did you pick to win the Cup this year? I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments section below. Make sure to slap the like button because you like this video and share because you want people to hear my cheesy voice. Yay. If you haven't subscribed yet, then what are you waiting for? I'm shooting for 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so I would truly appreciate it if you subscribe because it really does help me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next year to do this all over again. And by the way, Joe Buck is awesome. The Capitals never exactly dominated in the playoffs at all in recent years. What the fuck kind of drug was I on when I typed that?